This is the story of Nura Takaka and her experience performing at a JINN wedding. Nura Takaka, a Kuwaiti singer, led a band of talented women who were invited to perform at a wedding. The wedding took place at the bride's house, and upon arrival, they were greeted by the bride's mother. She guided them to a room where they could change into their performance attire and prepare for the event. As the guests began to arrive, the band started playing music and continued their captivating performance for hours. It was customary in many Middle Eastern countries for weddings to be attended exclusively by women, and this gathering followed that tradition. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, until one of Nura's backup singers suddenly panicked and fainted. Concerned for her colleague, Nura assisted her and led her to another room in order to help her calm down. It was there that the performer revealed a shocking encounter. A guest had lifted her dress and noticed that her feet resembled those of a horse. Nura and the band members convened away from the guests to discuss the unsettling experience. They all agreed that an eerie energy permeated the house, making them uncomfortable. Despite their unease, they decided to continue with their performance until the wedding concluded, which would be after midnight. Playing their music diligently, they entertained the guests until an unexpected turn of events occurred. The guests started screaming and jumping around frantically. Frustrated and determined to leave as swiftly as possible, Nura instructed her bandmates to pack up their instruments. As they hastily exited the house, they encountered a man walking. Surprised by their sudden departure, he inquired about their presence in the house. Nura explained that they had been performing at a wedding inside. The man responded, revealing a shocking truth. No one has lived in that house for years. Intrigued and wanting to prove the man wrong, Nura, accompanied by her band, ventured back into the house. To their astonishment, they found an empty dwelling, filled with broken furniture, dust covering every surface, and no signs of life. It became evident that the wedding that they had performed at was in fact a wedding of a jinn, a supernatural entity or demon in Islamic beliefs. Following the traumatic experiences they had endured, Nura decided to end her career as a singer, along with her band members. The encounters with the supernatural during the jinn's wedding had left an indelible mark, leading them to pursue different paths away from the world of music.
I have another jinn story time which will forever terrify me because jinns are 100% real. For the sake of the story, we're going to call her Riley. Riley grew up in Somali. One night she was having a sleepover with a bunch of her friends. The night went on as you would expect. The girls did like your typical like sleepover activities when out of nowhere they felt like something in the air was just off. The air just felt thick around them and they just felt like they were being watched. And then even though it was warm outside, in the bedroom where they were in, it was extremely cold. Things started to get really weird when Riley looked at her phone and noticed that even though she was at full battery, her phone went completely dead. Then one of the girls saw a shadow like dart across the room. Then the lights began to flicker and the girl just kind of stood there silent, like trying to figure out what was going on, when one of the girls just quietly whispered, "We're not alone." They all stood still as they felt this presence like right behind them, like watching them. Riley still tried to brush it off until she looked down at her phone that happened to turn on for a split second just for it to show a message from her brother that said, "Get out of your room, there's something in there with you." Riley's heart started to race. She got up and told the rest of the girls, so they all got up and tried to make their way out the front door. When they went to open the door would not open, even though like it wasn't even locked. For whatever reason, something was holding it shut. Then they started to hear the whispers. At first, the whispers sounded extremely low, but they slowly grew louder and louder. Riley couldn't really understand what the whispers were saying, but they sounded extremely ancient and scary. All of the girls stood there terrified when Riley remembered what her grandmother always used to tell her, that if she ever were to encounter a jinn, to pray, to recite the Quran, and to let it know that it wasn't welcomed. With her voice shaking but firm, Riley started to recite the Quran, and as she did, the air in the room started to lift up and everything felt lighter. Then out of nowhere, the door just like opened. The girls were too terrified to even look behind them to see what was going on, so they just completely opened up the rest of the door and ran out of the room. After that experience, the girls were too terrified to even talk about it, so decided to kind of just leave it behind them. But ever since that experience, anytime that Riley is home alone, she would start to slowly hear the whispers starting up in the corners of her room. Anytime that happens, she starts to recite the Quran and it typically stops. Unfortunately, that wasn't the last of the jinns that Riley ever encountered. After that experience, her mom and grandmother ended up passing away. They had absolutely no health issues, but as far as Riley knows, her experience with the jinn may have caused her mom and grandmother's demise.
This is a true horrifying story, part 8. This story took place with a Muslim man in the early 2000s in a small village in Sudan. To Muslim and non-Muslim viewers, let me explain what a ghost is in our religion. In Islam, we do not believe in people's spirits. The beings that haunt us are not bad souls of dead people. We refer to them as jinns. They are paranormal beings that live among us, but on a different plane, if that makes sense. They live in their own world. They get married to one another, males and females. There are old jinns, there are younger ones, there are good ones and also bad ones. The bad ones, who are the disbelievers, are known as the shaitans, in English, Satans. There are Muslim jinns, there are Christian jinns, there are weak ones, strong ones, dumb ones, and very smart ones. There are different types of jinns, such as the afrit, the khubth and the khaba'ith, the ghols, and the shapeshifters. The shapeshifting jinns have the ability to completely shapeshift into human form or specific animals, such as black cats, lizards, spiders, and more. In their world, they can see us, but we cannot see them. A Sudanese man that lives and studies in Europe visited his family in one of the Islamic occasions in Sudan. He's not really a big fan of the area he lives in, knowing that a few spots there are haunted by jinns. He has bad childhood memories of seeing figures, listening to kids playing late at night, and hearing strange animal noises. For the first time ever, this man might have seen a jinn closest to its real form, but not quite. The only way you can see a jinn is if the jinn shapeshifted. And sometimes the shapeshifting process is not quite accurate. The animal or the human form might have some faults. On one of the late nights, this man was outside smoking a cigarette, and he started hearing stray dogs barking. Minute by minute, the barks would get more aggressive. He sees a strange looking black animal that looks like a dog. He notices the stray dogs around this animal are barking at this dog specifically. The animal was moving towards him slowly, staring deep into his eyes. The man froze from fear and drops his cigarette. As the animal kept getting closer, it started looking different step by step. Its size started increasing, its eyes began diluting, and its arms was getting bulkier. He wanted to say the prayers to make it go away, but something was stopping him. This animal kept coming a few feet closer, and then the man saw it clearly. It had arms that looked like human arms, a face of a goat, and a body of a bulky dog. The animal stood up on both legs, and the man shouted the prayer. It drops down and shapeshifts into a small black cat and sprints away. Do jinns actually look like that, the way this author described? Or was that a shapeshifting fault?
I have another paranormal story for you, and this is a story of what happened to somebody who mocked a jinn who supposedly lived in a tree. Last winter, something happened to me that I'll never forget. I usually stay at my grandpa's house most of the time. It's just me, 3 of my aunts, and my grandparents. Sometimes my cousins come over too. The place they live in is a really green society full of trees and nature. The ecosystem there is amazing. There's even a beautiful park just a 10-minute walk away, and I love going there at night. Anyways, one night my neighbour and I decided to do something a little different. We decided to walk around at night, taking the long route to the park, and if I'm being honest, we wanted something spooky to happen. We left around 1 AM and it was a cold night with a light fog hanging in the air. We were walking along the sidewalk next to the main road. He warned me not to walk under the trees. He was dead serious about it. But I brushed it off thinking it was just one of those made up warnings aunties tell you to stop you from playing around. So of course I kept walking under the trees without a second thought. That week, I had watched a video from a channel called The Merciful Servant about different types of jinns, and trust me, they have different names, types, and even characteristics. So when we came across this huge old dry tree standing completely alone, I don't know what got into me, but I joked around. I called out the name of a specific jinn I had learnt about and said loudly, "You live here, right? I want your place now." In the exact second I said that, we heard this terrifying deep growl come from right above us, high up in the tree. It wasn't just any noise, it sounded like an angry, grizzling bear growling right at our heads. It was so loud, my ears got blocked and started ringing. We sprinted as fast as we could, reciting Ayatul Kursi at the top of our lungs the whole way to his house, which thankfully was closer than my grandparents'. And honestly, you'd think the nightmare ended there, but no. We entered his house through the back door since we weren't even supposed to be out that late. His mum was asleep upstairs and the rest of the house was pitch black as expected. As we crept quietly towards his room, we suddenly heard this really heavy breathing coming from about 10 feet around. It sounded like some huge person breathing loudly. Without thinking, we bolted to his room, slammed the door shut and locked it. It didn't stop. All night long, we both kept hearing someone outside the room. I'd hear someone softly call his name from outside, and he'd hear someone calling mine, but there was no one there, just his mum asleep upstairs. We also heard furniture moving around, footsteps, but when we checked, no one was there. When the morning finally came, I ran back to my grandpa's place. Later, he told me that after I left, he finally fell asleep, but woke up feeling like something was sitting on his chest and he couldn't breathe. He said he had to forcefully, painfully recite Ayatul Kursi and other surahs before the feeling went away. Thankfully, nothing like that happened to me, probably because I recite a lot of surahs before sleeping, so I learnt my lesson big time to never mess with jinns. And they're a lot more real than people think. And the area they were living in, my uncle once joked that it was built over an old pagan grave.